Back in 1989, the world was a vastly different place for us exennials. George Bush had just won the U.S. presidential election. Children's movies allowed for minor vulgarity and subjects that could be featured in said films before our world was thrown into a realm of sensitivity. And the video game world was dominated almost exclusively by the Nintendo Entertainment System, with simple 8-bit graphics featuring imagery of pixel-based heroes covered TV screens across the world. The natural progression of Nintendo's extreme popularity was to, of course, increase the content featuring the company's branding. Animated series, clothing, comic books, and a plethora of sold separately accessories for the NES filled the market. It was undoubtedly a phenomenon that was making a statement in the world of home entertainment. Nintendo may have struck gold with its recent efforts to crack Hollywood, but back in the late 80's, the notion of fusing the worlds of video games with movies was a totally alien one. You might think that Nintendo was the company responsible for getting The Wizard made, but the company had little to do with the film's inception. It was thought up by executives at Universal Pictures as a sort of updated version of Tommy, which was about a young man who becomes a prodigy at playing pinball games, but centered around video games instead. The plot was also inspired by Rain Man, which was released just the year prior in '88. Both films feature a brother duo where one brother leads the other to a competition where they can take advantage of the other brother's gifts. For Rain Man, it was Dustin Hoffman's skills at counting, which worked well to earn some serious cash in Vegas. For The Wizard, it was younger brother Jimmy's, Luke Edwards, ability to play any video game expertly that brought the kids to the Video Armageddon gaming competition. Both brothers were savants on the autism spectrum. The world in 1989 was absolutely ready to see their beloved video game realm brought to life on the big screen. But what accompanied their favorite games in action was equally fascinating, an enriching story with a moral tale threaded throughout. Since then, an enduring legacy that can be described as cult fanatical has grown up around this remarkable and underrated piece of cinema. The film was written very quickly, in only 3 weeks, because the studio was worried about an impending writer's strike. They hired David Chisholm, who was under contract at the time, to pen the script since he was used to fast-paced TV writing. Not only was star Fred Savage fresh off the Wonder Years set, but so was producer Ken Topolsky and most of the crew. Director Todd Holland admits he was not a gamer and that it was a foreign world to him, but he pitched his inexperience in that arena as an asset to the studio so he could make The Wizard accessible for gamers and non-gamers alike. To be honest, Universal didn't want me to direct it. They saw this movie as a total programmer. They wanted a TV movie director, a tradesman to come in and just get the job done. But I'd grown up loving kid adventure movies, and all the fancier movies I developed at Universal had fallen apart one by one. I wanted to direct a feature badly, The president of Universal Pictures literally set me in his office and told me all the reasons he didn't want me to direct it. But I loved the adventure of the story. I loved the kids against the world element. To be honest, I did not play video games at the time, and I actually sold that as my strongest suit for the job. The movie needed to make video games interesting to everyone, not just preach to the converted. And I think that's why it worked. It was evident that the goal in Holland's vision was not to make a 90-minute Nintendo commercial, but to use the video game aspect as a framing device for a deeper family tale. The entire movie was filmed in northern Nevada and California. Filming began on June 12, 1989, in the Gardnerville area and continued through the rest of the Carson Valley community, as well as neighboring cities like Carson City, Reno, Dayton, and a few others. One of the main reasons Nintendo opted to support the Wizard had to do with a memory chip shortage in 1988. Without enough of the chips being made, Nintendo couldn't follow its own release schedule in the Western market. This meant that Super Mario Bros. 2 and Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link couldn't be released as planned, and Nintendo saw the film as an opportunity to promote its products via a feature film as a means of filling the gap left in production. Director Todd Holland said, "Nintendo had input on all things Nintendo, but they were pretty easy. It's not like it is today when you have exclusive access to products. I do remember the security guy showing up with the Power Glove in a locked briefcase when we got our first look at it. I liked the idea so much, I gave the character Lucas Barton a similar case. When we shot, the security stood by all day and took the Power Glove away when we wrapped. No way were they leaving it lying about on the set. Nintendo got me started gaming on that movie when they gave me my own Game Boy. The marketing certainly worked, even if the Power Glove didn't. The product was famously difficult to use, and it rarely worked with the games it was designed to support." Back in the late 1980s, there were video game tournaments, but they were a niche market, and very few people knew about them or attended them when they happened. Nintendo had a small competition called the Nintendo Challenge Championship in Canada the year The Wizard came out, but it had nowhere near the draw as the competition featured in the film. Director Todd Holland said, "The final competition was written as being in a hotel meeting room essentially, more real world for the period. I saw it should be bigger. I coined the phrase Video Armageddon, more of an event. In hindsight, it's funny how much the World Cyber Games and others really became Video Armageddon. I definitely saw this as a big spectator sport, even way back then." At the Video Armageddon final contest, the large screens they're playing on are all rear-projected screens because there were no televisions that large at the time. The film utilized former Nintendo gameplay counselors to play most of the games shown throughout the film. However, the systems had to be connected to a special contraption that converted the gameplay to film. Otherwise, audiences would have seen the familiar scan lines you see when you film a television, and the frame rates don't match. One of the biggest reveals in The Wizard was the gameplay footage of Super Mario Bros. 3. The film offered gamers in the United States their first glimpse at the game, and it was a big deal. However, this promised glimpse wasn't revealed until the movie was released. In 1989, the only way people got to see anything about a game before it was released came in the form of magazines like Nintendo Power. Interestingly, the game had been revealed to players in Japan long before anyone in the States had the opportunity to see it. Todd Holland said, "We didn't know what game we were going to be featuring when we started. Super Mario 3 came in while we were prepping. It was super top secret. And as a non-gamer then, I really only wanted to understand how to play it, so I could direct it. I wasn't that aware what an event that game's release would be to the gamer audience." The Super Mario franchise was on fire. The world was awaiting the third installment of the video game series, the legendary Super Mario Bros. 3, and the popular Nintendo Power magazine presented previews of updated graphics and new features. A map-style level select process, numerous new power-ups, warp zones that could be accessed with a magical flute, and most importantly, the ability to fly. Minds were blown, and gamers waited impatiently. When the Wizard came out with the concept of a video game competition capable of drawing a huge crowd, many people laughed at the idea. However, Nintendo didn't, and the movie helped to establish esports as a viable competition. 1 year after the movie was released, Nintendo launched the Nintendo World Championships, an American competition that traveled to 30 cities in the States. The winners took home a number of prizes. The most special item in the grab bag was an official Nintendo World Championships cartridge in gold or gray. Those are some of the rarest NES cartridges ever made, so they naturally sell for a very high price. To honor the competition's 25th anniversary, Nintendo of America launched the competition once more in 2015, and it's due, in part, to this poorly received film that eventually became a cult classic. It's easy to look at The Wizard and see little more than a commercial, but the film was innovative when it came out, in that video games hadn't been marketed via a feature film before. Commercial advertising in movies wasn't new, but filmmakers hadn't yet targeted gamers, and that made the movie unique. There are tons of Nintendo products spread throughout the film, but Nintendo wasn't the only advertiser to throw a few products onto the screen. Universal Pictures' involvement in the film was clear thanks to the inclusion of a scene where the film's protagonists are chased through every major attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood. The scene was meant to add some concern about the kids getting to the tournament, but it was also a quick tour through the fun and entertaining attractions and characters at the park. The movie also gave some screen time to Hostess, Vision Streetwear, Cosmopolitan, and the New Kids on the Block, who were incredibly popular at the time. Universal was more than willing to milk the film for all it was worth, and that's exactly what it did. Budgeted at $6 million, The Wizard generated $14.3 million at the box office, so it can hardly be considered an out-and-out bomb. Yet the critical reaction at the time was nothing short of scathing. The late Roger Ebert labeled it a cynical exploitation film with a lot of commercial plugs, adding that it was insanely overwritten and ineptly filmed, before citing it as one of the worst movies of the year. However, as is so often the case with these films, Ebert wasn't the Wizard's target audience, and it has since become a beloved cult classic, not only for its inclusion of Nintendo's hottest NES games, but for its heartfelt portrayal of a broken family trying its hardest to heal following a devastating tragedy. Regarding The Wizard, director Todd Holland said, "Universal never regarded this film as anything but a commodity. The day it opened, I was told it was a tremendous flop for them. I couldn't get hired to do anything for 6 months. It wasn't until the DVD came out, of course unannounced by Universal, that the internet allowed me to connect with the fans and finally understand that I hadn't failed and that I did know how to reach my audience on The Wizard. Everything I'd fought to put on film had been really loved and appreciated. But I learned that all on my own. Universal has never reached out to me once in 35 years regarding The Wizard. So the battle to get them to treat this film with any part of the love the fans feel for it will be an uphill one. One last comment. I would like to express my deep and sincere gratitude to all the fans who have kept The Wizard alive all these years. It's great to know that with this film, we truly reached kids looking for adventure. Thanks for taking the ride." So, tell me, viewers, is this film a comfort classic for you, despite the cynical critics? Does it smack of your elementary school years like it does mine? Please sound off in the comments. Thanks for watching, and good night.